If you've known someone with a terminal illness, chances are that you have witnessed their excruciating pain at the end of their disease. I witnessed this with my father, who in 2001 passed away with stage 4 kidney cancer and brain tumors. So today I'm going to talk to you about physician-assisted suicide and how terminally ill patients all around the United States are actively seeking this to help alleviate their pain and suffering. First of all, you may want to know what is a physician-assisted suicide. It's basically what the title says. It's when a medical professional helps a terminal ill person in their suffering and in their life. It's not anything new in the United States. It's something that since 1906, Ohio had been trying to pass in something called a Voluntary Euthanasia Act for the incurably and medically ill. The legislation in Ohio failed to pass in 1906, but it only opened the door for other states to try to pass similar legislation. It was not until 1990 when a retired pathologist, Jack Kevorkian, made a suicide machine and placed it in a van and traveled around the United States to help terminally ill patients in their lives that it even became a topic of discussion again. The media portrayed Dr. Kevorkian as the doctor of death, whereas I would have portrayed him as a doctor of mercy. The media asked Dr. Kevorkian what was the reasoning he made the machine, and he basically said that what he was doing was nothing more than giving a person the right to die, and that he doesn't want the right to die because everyone's going to die anyway. He wanted to give people the right of not suffering, and that is an important distinction between suffering and, helping someone kill themselves. And that in a acceptable and a rational society, that would be something that would be accepted. His actions with the suicide machine and him helping to aid 150 or more patients in their lives for their terminal illness only catapulted the subject even more so. Oregon in 1994 passed the Death of Dignity Act with a little bit of opposition. So between 1994 and 1997, Oregon, it was debated back and forth between the legislation and people who didn't want the legislation. But in 1997, people went out and voted again to keep the current act. So why would a terminally ill person want to seek out a physician-assisted suicide? Well, basically, most terminally ill people want the right to die with dignity and autonomy. And what dignity basically is defined as is being worthy of honor or respect and having a sense of pride and self-respect in oneself. Terminally ill people, I can say, at least with my father, they lose their dignity as their condition progresses on. They feel like they are not self-reliant, and therefore they feel like that they are less human, basically. Oregon did a study at the Oregon Health Department between September 1998 and October 1999, and within that time frame, 24 people, terminally ill people, sought out a physician-assisted suicide. 19 were granted the physician-assisted suicide, and those families were polled, and the terminally ill person was polled and asked what were the top 5 reasons that they sought out the physician-assisted suicide. And the top 5 reasons the top one was the loss of control of bodily functions. People were afraid of that happening to them. The second was the loss of autonomy. They wanted to be able to discuss and they wanted to be able to determine when and how they were going to die. The physical suffering, they didn't want to suffer anymore. The inability to participate in life's enjoyable experiences. With all of the drugs and all of the treatments going on in their bodies, they were sick and they wanted to be able to live out their days with quality of life instead of quantity of life. And they are concerned about being a burden on their loved ones. And you may ask, how would they be a burden on their loved ones? Well, not only physically or sociologically or psychologically, but also with their financials, the estate and financial security that they would leave their family in when they pass. Because most people who have terminal ill diseases, the end of stage treatments for them have no effect on their life, and it has no effect on the quantity or the quality of their life. Most end stage treatments create debt that is surmountable, that is uncontrollable at times, and it leaves families destitute. Medical insurance covers some costs, but not without a costly copay, and they have to meet it before they'll even do anything else. But if you want to be in your home and you want to be around your loved ones to help, keep you comfortable and everything, medical insurance won't even cover those costs. There's also not only the financial burden on your family, that they feel that there's also this emotional damage component to their family as well, that they're constantly being reminded that they have a debilitating disease, and that causes the emotional distress of the patient and also of the family that is left behind, because the family has a forever picture in their mind of what their loved one went through in the end of days. Many seek a physician-assisted suicide because they don't want to rob the family of the happy times that they've had, that they could have, that they have had. And they don't want their grieving process to be coupled with depression and self-loathing and a sense of inadequacy, that they could have done something more than what they did. Physician-assisted suicide is already something practiced in Europe. It's been practiced in Belgium and in the Netherlands since the late 1990s. It's monitored, but it's not monitored enough, that to the point where they offer physician-assisted suicides for mentally ill people and the elderly and mentally retarded or physically handicapped, those who are seen as having a financial drain or emotional drain on family. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is for terminally ill people only. Terminally ill people should be given compassion and dignity, and that should be the primary focus for passing this, for even suggesting a physician-assisted suicide. Compassion is defined as a feeling of deep sympathy and sorrow for another who is stricken by misfortune, accompanied by a strong desire to alleviate the suffering. This should always be afforded to terminally ill people, because physician-assisted suicide should always be seen as compassionate. Physician-assisted suicide has different meanings to different groups. To the terminally ill patient, it could mean that they die with their dignity, they keep undue financial stresses and debt from being left behind for their family, and keeping emotional turmoil and a psychological picture that's not necessarily needed in someone's mind left behind, and keeping something that is nice and pleasant about the terminal ill patient in their loved one's memories when they're gone. Some quotes to defend the physician-assisted suicide have been, given throughout a lot of literature. I've pulled a few out, and these are cited in my Works Cited page. Physicians ought not to abandon their critically ill that's suffering for their patients, and that supporters of physician-assisted suicide call it the ultimate civil right. Opponents link it with the Holocaust. As the 21st century dawns, euthanasia, which is Greek for meaning good health, or good death, has joined abortion as one of the most painfully divisive issues in the developed world. So physician-assisted suicide could be the answer that many seek, the terminally ill especially. Just as a do not resuscitate order and a living will order empowers the patients that are living and help them decide fate if something were to go wrong in their life, a physician-assisted suicide could be the option that allows the terminally ill to help ease their pain and suffering in their final days. Thank you.